Never mind.
DJ Genesis Detroit. Truth in the algorithm. Welcome to the live stream.
Yeah, live stream junkie with the mic turned on, breaking down the matrix while the lights stay on. Politics, religion, yeah, we question every claim, while the media playing narratives and shifting every frame. Ancestors speaking through the wisdom of Ifa, cosmic knowledge shining like a distant star. From Detroit to the world on a digital stage, dropping truth bombs every time I hit the page.
Welcome to the channel where the truth get deployed.
DJ Genesis live from Detroit.
Breaking down the system, every lie gets destroyed.
Tap in, subscribe, you rockin' with the voice.
Welcome to the channel.
Where the truth get deployed.
DJ Genesis live from Detroit.
Breaking down the system, every lie gets destroyed. Tap in, subscribe, you rockin' with the voice.
Debates on fire, got the comments going crazy. Asking questions that the system can't face me. From ancient civilizations to the modern day lies, connecting dots that they hide from the public eye.
Knowledge of self, yeah, the ancestors guide. When the full moon rising for the spiritual tide.
This the place where the truth gets exposed.
Every live stream, another chapter unfolds.
To the channel. Welcome to the channel where the
truth get deployed.
DJ Genesis live from Detroit. Welcome.
Breaking down the system, every lie gets destroyed. Tap in, subscribe, you rockin' with the voice.
DJ Genesis Detroit. Truth seekers unite, 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 unite. Stay away, stay away, stay away. Stay questioning.
Welcome. This is DJ Genesis, and today we have a special show for our audience, and we're going to be talking about the spirituality behind addiction, spirituality and addiction. We want to talk about how substance abuse feeds into addiction. Spirituality and substance, just talking about it all together. So, and I have a special guest, and I'm so happy to bring him on. His name is Mandela Elliott. Welcome to the show, Mandela. How are you doing?
I'm good. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. So I wanted to just get a little background of, who is Mandela? Who is Mandela Elliott? Give us a little background on who you are.
I am.
And you don't have to
natural.
You don't have to hold the phone like this. Just keep it like that. There we go.
Okay. You able to hear me good, right?
Yeah. You don't have to put it up to your mouth, so we can hear you.
All right. Well, all my life I've always been a super sensitive person in terms of spiritual sensitive, like what we call an empath, so to speak. And coming from a mixed background where your family is predominantly a religious kind of family, even though I didn't grow up in church, but I mean the just the religious background where your grandparents and everybody had a strong spiritual faith without the spiritual connection. So I've always been very much in tune with the spirit world and energies from my environment and that I could feel from other people. And I never really fully understood what that consisted of and the impact of it until I started getting older, because when you are in tune with everything like that, it's easy to get conflicted between your own personal feelings and what you are exposed to from everybody else. So that was just the process that I had to kind of go through, especially coming up in a background where both of my parents were substance abusers, as far as my father and his alcoholism, and my mom, I wouldn't call her a substance abuser, but very much an addictive personality, where you aren't, growing up, my sister and I was trying to always get my mom to stop smoking cigarettes because I was born with respiratory problems because she would always smoke around me at an early age. So that probably had a lot to do with me having a need to change my diet. So there is
Mm.
always just that tension where you feel like you have that calling, but you don't know how to tap into it, and then you try certain substances like weed or whatever to help you sleep because you don't realize you are literally walking in between both worlds, like the spirit world and the physical world. So you always like a lucid dreamer and stuff like that. And I had to figure out how to balance that spiritual and the physical together, because that's what I was here to do. That's what I felt called to do, is to learn how to uh the temporary things that I was experiencing naturally. I had to I was kind of confused between how to develop these things. So I had to learn how to do it, naturally, without being like mistaken that I can, develop these abilities through substances and entheogens and like, pills or alcohol and things like that, because it would let me tap into it temporarily, but not actually have a full blown experience that I was always looking for. You know what I mean?
Right. So do me a favor. Take your phone and like put it somewhere like stationary where it's not moving. There we go.
Let me see. I don't really have a phone holder.
That's okay. All right. There's something in front of it right there. I think the sun is shining. Well, do me a favor as you talk. Just don't move your phone as much. It's hard to like focus when you do that. But so let's get an idea of like what your childhood was like. What exactly how was your childhood? You say your father was a substance abuser. How was it growing up in your household?
So my father was very much a strong-minded person, and uh, he was a semi-professional boxer. So coming up in Chicago, he was always one of the people, that the kind of person that you could look towards for strength and stability. But he always had that alcoholism to kind of like hinder his development. So he would only, I got the chance to learn firsthand like how substances will only let you get so far, especially in your own natural potential. Because he was semi-professional with boxing and made it into the golden gloves, and had about 20 professional fights. But he, and he met plenty of famous people throughout his life. It's just he wasn't able to fully excel in his potential because of the alcohol. And that was one of the first lessons that taught me that there's gonna be a glass ceiling where you can only go so far in life until you return back to the beginning. Like like through growth and development, you can only go so far. You can only develop so far until you go back into that innocence and go back to the beginning to complete the cycle all over again. If that makes sense. Like, you can't like evolve while taking these addictions or these additives with you, because you weren't born with these things. So you had to get to know yourself all over again as
So what
you
so
progress
what
and you age.
so what was it like? All right, so growing up in your household, you have a father that's a boxer. He drinks, he has an alcohol problem. What was it like growing up in your household with a father that was an alcoholic?
It was very, very stressful because you felt like you had to. Okay, I have to paint the picture, because by the time I was born, he was in recovery. So even though he was a lifelong alcoholic, by the time that I was born, he was actually in recovery, and marijuana was his drug of choice at that point. So it was also a system where it was easy access for the marijuana, especially from my sister and my older stepbrothers coming up too. So even though he had that alcoholism, it was still part of his spirit in a sense where you felt like you with dealing with a semi-professional boxer and somebody who's very good with their hands and is known throughout the streets of Chicago as the kind of person that you don't mess with unless you approach him with a weapon. It made you be very like insecure or walking on eggshells all the time because you felt like you had to meet certain expectations unless you weren't good enough, so to speak. And it's hard to kind of measure up to a certain person like that. You see what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
it can make you feel a lot smaller. But by the time I was born, he was already in recovery. So I didn't get to experience that the whole the worst extremes of it because he was very abusive during that process before my mom even came into the picture. But because it was like a recovery process and he was still kind of, my mom had to be the one to teach him how to learn to read and everything else. So she played a pivotal part of him being able to become more well-rounded in his in his own development, even though they he was in his mid 30s when they met. So it's just a very intense experience, not feeling like you can fully be yourself or be as emotionally available to your father because he's somebody that you know went through it all, but at the same time you are afraid to be yourself or be vulnerable because you don't want to get in trouble. And I had to repress a lot of the experiences that I went through. And honestly, because I felt like most of my life was so isolated or sheltered to an extent where my parents didn't want me to be exposed to a lot of things that they went through, that I opened up the door to these substances because I felt like that was the door to my self autonomy or my personal independence, where I could live my own individual life without involving or including other people. It was just like me trying to find myself and be myself and just experience life through vicariously through these substances with and I got the chance to really learn that everything that I'm looking for naturally is already in me, and I didn't necessarily need the substances. I was just trying to use the substances to help me develop or express what's already inside of me, and I didn't really know how to do that until I was guided by the spirit world. You know what I mean?
So here's a question: like, was there anything traumatic that happened in your childhood that kind of like would be a trigger that would even make using substances, using drugs, uh, heal in your mind or to forget about?
Was there anything in my childhood that would have been a trigger that the drugs would have been a coping mechanism for? You mean? Is
Yes,
that what you said?
yes.
Uh, well, the overwhelming it's just like because I am the youngest of all of my siblings. I'm the baby of the family, so my siblings got to experience a lot more than what I feel like I got to because I feel like I was more sheltered. So while my
Sheltered and
older
sheltered how?
sheltered as in by the time I was in like in kindergarten and started, fifth and sixth, I was turning like 5 or 6. I ended up moving out of Chicago because I was born in not literally, but I was born like I lived in the projects when I was born. So by the time I was in started grade school and kindergarten and everything, they made sure I left the projects at a very early age while my sister was a preteen at that age. So for her, it was a culture shock. For me, I was kind of caught in between. I was also caught in between, like, who am I versus the in my like experiencing like a family dichotomy between, like, my whole family being from Chicago, so I go out to spend time with my cousins and everything, but I feel like I feel like I'm
A,
sticking
dis-
out like a sore thumb.
a disconnect. You felt like a disconnect because you probably like grew up
Exactly.
in like the suburbs. They made a better
Exactly.
life for
So they
themselves.
looking at me like I'm talking proper. I use bigger words to express myself, but every time I go to spend time with my family, because I love the family atmosphere, it put things. Even though you're going to find that sense of belonging, your family will always remind you that you're not one of them. You see what I'm saying? So it's like everything you say and everything you do makes you stand out like a sore thumb, even if you are around the people who you're supposed to be family with. And then that's what made me learn early on, like, who I am. Like, I had to learn to be myself regardless of what everybody's preconditions are or what their
Did you feel like did you feel like you were coddled as a child, like you were like baby growing up, being the baby
just
of the family?
to just in a sheltered way, where, because my sister was the more rebellious one, because she was a teenager when she moved out of Chicago. So when she wanted to get close to that family environment, she literally take my parents' car and just drive off with it, and without really caring, because she also felt trapped. It was like a culture shock for the whole family. And to my father's, perspective, he was literally just trying to provide a situation and an opportunity that he didn't have himself growing up. Coming up in poverty and coming up while he was like the black sheep of the family, and he felt like his father was from like a illegitimate relationship between him and between like his mother.
Hmm. So was it still a situation where, like, okay, you guys were he raised one part of the family in the projects in the hood, and then you guys like moved out of the hood into a better neighborhood, and then you guys felt a disconnect to your actual neighborhood, and so when you actually tried to assimilate to this new lifestyle, it was just like a lot of like pushback as far as like not even feeling like you fit in anywhere.
Yeah, it was mainly just the fact that it was a culture shock, and not being able to really, like, you are being moved like out of the you're out of the neck of the woods, where you are in a more secluded neighborhood where it's really like literally no black people at all. So it's very hard to be yourself without getting yourself in trouble, because everything you do will make you stand out in these type of environments. And you also have to, like, I was always taught that you have to be 3 to 5 times better than the average white person to be considered equal to them. So just coming up with those expectations, and then not always having the best grades that I would like to have, like, I always felt very burdened by trying to meet those expectations
Was you like you felt like
without
a lot
being
of
able to be myself.
so you felt a lot of pressure growing up.
Right. It was a lot of pressure to just meet up with these expectations that my family would always try to impose on you. But it wasn't them being overbearing. It was just them trying to push what they felt like was best for you without truly having an unconditional understanding.
So you felt like your sister probably grew up in like a more, even though it was like the hood, there was more community environment where she like grew up and she was always escaping to go back to the hood. She had that connection to the hood, but then you were kind of isolated in this suburban area, and you didn't feel connected to the people that were in that area, so you felt isolated. Correct?
Well, that's the thing. Since I was so young, I didn't experience the division and the separation until I got a little bit older. Until like I came out the neighborhood. I came out the projects at the age of 5. So by the time I turned 10, another 5 years later, it's like my so-called best friends would always be your friend only in certain conditions, right? Though you learn how conditional friendships really are at a very early age in those kind of environments, because nobody really wanted to be my friend when it was time to partner up for like work projects per se, because I might not have been as expressive or as academically astute as they were, but at the same time I could be a class clown. So I learned how to alleviate a lot of that tension and insecurity through like being able to just figure out how to make everybody laugh and be myself and just kind of express myself by like alleviating the tension, and you know what I'm saying, and just kind of make people laugh instead of being that intelligent person that I that would make me feel better about myself. But if I can make everybody laugh, then that will at least make me feel more secure about myself. Now, when you fast forward that though, they didn't choose you as a partner when it came to like work projects, but they'll choose you when it's time to go out into the playground, or they'll be like, "Hey, you want to?" When it's time for the pickup ball game or for gym class and stuff like that, that's when they want to pick you and say, "Hey, Mandela, let's link up. I want you on my team." You see what I'm saying? So I
Right.
felt
So
like
were you like pretty much like the only black person in your school?
you can count them coming up. You can count them on almost on one hand. But
Same
I
thing
was a
about the
star.
neighborhood. Same thing in the neighborhood. Like you were pretty much the
Yeah,
black.
it was the same thing in the neighborhood. It took almost 20 years for this whole neighborhood to get more developed. But
Mm.
I live on sacred Indian grounds. I need to emphasize that. So everything that happened for a reason. And I didn't understand why it was happening until I got older. And I didn't realize that I was being a little bit protected because I live like my father would always say, like, if my father would always tell me, like, if we would have grown up in Chicago, if I would have grown up in Chicago, because I love drugs so much, he felt like I would be very strung out if I would have grown up in Chicago, so to speak. But it wasn't that I love drugs; it was the fact that it was more of an experimental process to fully feel like I could be myself, and I didn't know how to be myself without it until I made those connections with nature.
So
So
how did you get introduced to drugs? What was your what was your first drug that you ever took?
I would say, I would say, as far as the exotic type of shit, was
No,
painkillers.
no. What was the first exact drug that you ever took?
It was a painkiller, yeah.
So your first
So
drug that
let
you
me
ever
let me
took?
paint a
No, no.
picture real.
But
Let
the
me
first drug that you ever took, you started off on painkillers first. Like
I want
you
to.
didn't drink any alcohol, you didn't do any weed, you just went straight to the first thing you ever did was a painkiller.
That's the thing. Like, I've always been very sensitive, right? So my mom, like, I hate cigarettes, and my mom would grow up smoking cigarettes in my face, and that caused respiratory issues and shit. So one day she'd throw a cigarette down, right? She'd just throw it and flick it. And one time I just ran to just grab it and just try it one time, right? And I literally couldn't even breathe for a few minutes. Like, it just choked me out. So
Right.
I could be very sensitive to those things. And then, like, as a teenager, I've, had a beer or two. But by the time that preteen age set in, I I want to say there was a class that I had in class where we picked. They gave us like a bucket full of like a bunch of options where you like had a bunch of little pieces of paper, and whatever paper that you pull out with random. This was in health class, right? So you'll pick a paper to do a project on. So whatever paper that you grab, it'll be whatever project that you'll do it on. And I ended up conveniently pulling out Vicodin right on the paper. And that's when I did a whole class project on Vicodin itself. And this was around the age of maybe 12, 13 years old, I think. So learning about Vicodin and its addictive properties and how it is a synthetic version of, in the dopamine and endorphins and that we create naturally, it sounded almost enticing, but at the same time, it was just like, oh, okay, cool, that's interesting. Until I was in my parents' medicine cabinet one day after doing this very same project, and sure enough, coincidentally, there was a bottle of Vicodin, right?
Hmm.
So it's like, oh, I literally just did a project on this shit, and they gave me a full book on various drugs and stuff like that. And like coming up in the 90s, they had the DARE program too. So we was always taught about the dangers of drug abuse, but it was never fully like it was never.
It didn't talk about pills. It was talking about like crack and weed.
Yeah,
Like,
basically,
how
basically, they never talked. They never really brought up the harm, the dangers of prescription pill abuse, like prescription abuse per se. It was more so like street drugs in their programs.
Right.
But the first time I came across the word Vicodin was in health class when they had us doing a project on it. Why would they throw Vicodin into a bucket full of illegal drugs? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, as far as like a topic situation, like they had cocaine, they had all kind of illegal drugs.
If you probably would have never did that report, you probably would have seen that drug sitting in that thing and would have probably never even looked at it. Right? It was just.
I honestly wouldn't have known what it was. Honestly.
So by doing that report, you knew what Vicodin was, and you see that in there, you say, you know what, let me try this out and see what's going to happen. So what was
exactly?
So what happened the first time you did
it? I literally probably took one, and obviously, one long story short, I realized that was one of the things that would help me relax and allow me to sleep while being awake at the same time. And that duality of being asleep and awake has something that I've always been doing without really realizing that's what I've been doing. So I realized that pill, that one Vicodin, will allow me to relax and be able to, because growing up as a child, I was not a great sleeper. I would always stay up to maybe 3 o'clock in the morning just to be able to get a good night's sleep. And then by the time the sun start rising up, is by the time I would be able to fall asleep and get sleepy. You see what I'm saying?
And your parents wasn't even aware that you were up there the whole time, huh?
Well, they'd make me go in my room. As long as I'm in my room, they figure he'll eventually fall asleep. But it was, growing up, I just was kind of had a problem like sleeping well, And
so you got to hold it to the Vicodin. When did your parents realize? Because I'm sure that once you did the one, it was like you probably. I mean, how did you start taking it? Once you did, like you would take it every 8 hours, or take it the next day, or how did it start off?
It honestly became an issue. Well, I would grab a cup. This was so long ago that I can't fully recollect what took place during this time period, as far as like if I faced any repercussions. I don't think I faced severe. I did get exposed, like I did get in trouble for it, but I don't remember how much time progressed between my first introduction in their medicine cabinet, but it was a little while down the road where they did
You
realize
started to
that I
become
was
real like, oh, so my pills are coming up missing. Who's doing
yeah,
it?
it did because based on my personality, I don't have like a huge addictive personality, but when I find something that I like, I tend to dive into it until I can't get enough, until I'm sick of it, so to speak. Like I'll
So
just kind
how
of
old
go.
are you when you how old were you when you took your first Vicodin?
I want to say about going on 12 or 13 because I
Wow.
remember it was I was I want to say right in that early teenage years,
Right. So you took
and
your first Vicodin at 12 or 13. That's why you
this
can't
was
get
around I want to say a little bit before I turned a teenager because I remember by the time I was in high school was the first time I tried like harder stuff like Percocets and stuff. So this was
so,
before high school. This was
so how long
around.
did it take for them to realize that their Vicodins were coming up missing from that first time at 12, 13? How long did it take? Like a year, 6 months? How long did it take for them to realize?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I was so young, it probably was no more than a couple months because I'm sure they realized their pills were starting to get. I remember my father being a boxing coach. He had one of his the people that he trained is a doc is works in the healthcare. Works as a physician because his father is a doctor, but he himself was like a up and coming physician. So my father wasn't so privy to the effects of Vicodin, even though he was prescribed it. So by the time it became an issue, and he noticed that that's what was my go-to of choice, he spoke to some of his people that he was training with, and they explained it to him how Vicodin was heavily addictive and all of that. So they did give him the information to let him know, like these are the kind of things you want to kind of keep away from children and stuff like that. But it by that time it was the ball already started rolling. You know what I mean?
Right. So you started off with Vicodin, taking it in your out of the cabinet with your parents, and then you're 13, 12, 13. You eventually move in. That you get kind of caught. Parents addressed you how? What happened? How did your parents address the situation and get you to? Did they get you to stop taking it, and then you got reintroduced into high school, or did you kind of keep trying to sneak stuff? How did it go?
Well, that's the thing. By the time I opened that door, this was around eighth grade, right on the steps of high school. So I believe, but I don't remember 100%. I do recall like not going through any withdrawals from the pills though, so that wasn't an issue. I think they just, confiscated it and put it away to, sequestered it, so I couldn't have access to it. But other than that, that just opened up the door. So it caused okay, now it's starting to bring back memories now that you got me talking about it. So this was around the time I had my very first drug test too. And they noticed that I started kind of dabbling and experimenting around this time period. So this is when my mom ended up giving me a drug test around this time. And that's when I, you know, was transitioning out of high school. So this was, way past the Vicodin stage though. So once
So
I
how
ended up,
did you go into high school, and what was your first introduction into harder things like Percocets and different other pills? Like how did you get introduced into that?
because by the time I was, in my preteens, by the time I was, before I ended up in high school, I was still into sports and everything else. So by the time I made that transition from seventh to eighth grade, everybody was saying I was so talented, I could write my own ticket into success, right? I was like one of the best.
Uh oh.
I
Your
still got
audio.
broken records at my middle school that those white kids can't even touch to this day, and it's been over 20 years since I've been there.
What were you? You were the
So
best at what? Like in track or in
yeah,
football?
this is track and field. This is just overall track meets and overall you know other schools and stuff like that.
Okay, you gotta hold your phone. Your because you're moving your phone around. The audio is starting to mess up now.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
but
So
yeah, it just during that time period, it was a huge transition between being very athletic and having a lot of potential from seventh grade until the introduction of the Vicodin. And then by eighth grade, my sister passed away too. And I've also had to be the rock for my family because my sister was like literally the glue to the whole family, and the reason why the family would still get together and go back to Chicago and come together and have family events and stuff like that. But when the glue, so to speak, of my sister passed away, it made it I had to be the rock for them. And this is literally like me from 12 turning 13. Like she passed at 12, but my birthday was a few months later. So that's when during that very same summer that after my sister passed, during that very same summer after school during summer break, my older cousins who were around at the same age range as my big sister, because we always were about 7 8 years different. So she was 8 years, 7 to 8 years older than me, and my older cousins are in that same age range. So they knew that my father had my sister used to take my father's weed because he always had his own stash and it was always easy access. So after I had tried my first Vicodin and all of that, I wasn't even smoking weed yet. But my older cousins already knew that my sister used to grab some of my father's stash, and they told me exactly where to go to find it. Nah, my sister actually showed it to me one day and was like, because you're my little brother, I just wanted to show you all of this that dad got. But I didn't realize that we took turns coming up. All of the siblings, from the older brothers to my sister, who was like the middle child, to me, who was the baby. We all took sequential turns, grabbing the stash from my father. You see what I'm saying? But he always had so much that he wouldn't really notice. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So it just uh during that transition though, coming into high school after my sister passed away, I had uh the very first pill with the Vicodin experience in eighth grade because of health class. And then by the time I was introduced to the weed, this was after my sister had already passed away. So I was already going through a lot of trauma, and because I was already so my sister, you got to really like understand that because my sister kept taking my parents' cars just to kind of just drive off and go to the nearest hood to spend time with her friends, just to kind of get some sense of orientation, and because she wasn't really comfortable with the environment that we was living in, that would cause my parents to kind of keep me on a very tight leash too. You know what I mean? And that tight leash was what opened up the door for me to want to start smoking weed, because A, it was easy access, and B, it was like, this is my only autonomy where I could do what I want to do without anybody being in my business, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Well, hell, you didn't realize that weed has a smell, and that everybody can smell it when you smoke it.
So,
I
well,
So here's a question. Here's a question. Could you say something?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
So you got into the Percocets and started taking those. When did you kind of go on and begin? And so was there like a group around that were doing the same thing, or were you kind of like a isolated person that was just like not very friendly? That kind of, like, what's it called, like introvert, that kind of just was doing stuff and didn't really have many friends around, or were they doing this stuff with you?
It was a bit of both because after I first started with the Vicodin, at the early age of like eighth grade, about the time I was in eighth grade before I started ninth and freshman year, that's when I started smoking weed because that was like the time my sister had around the time my sister had passed away. But remember in seventh grade I was into sports and everything else. So everybody seen my potential. Like I used to play soccer, I used to play basketball, and I ran track and field and it was, breaking records and getting first place records and everything that I did. So after seventh grade, entering eighth grade, that's when I started smoking weed, and that's when it opened up it changed my friendship. It changed the type of friends that I had around me. So instead of hanging out with the basketball players, I'd hang out with the weed smokers now. You see what I'm saying? And then by the time it was time for like eighth grade and time when soccer season started up and the coach wanted me to, the coach expected me to, walk onto the field and be one of their best players again. But the coach literally made me walk he damn near held my hand all the way onto the soccer field just so I could turn around and walk away. And they looking at me, everybody just turning around looking at me like, we need you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they looking at me like, I don't get you. I don't understand it. And then just recently, one of my second grade teachers, I ran into her at the store, and she was the one that seen my potential coming up and was the one telling my mom that I could write my own ticket and all of that because of my potential. And I literally seen her at the dollar store no more than a couple weeks ago. And I told her, like, she was like, yeah, she mentioned how she was telling me how to get back into the sports and get back doing what you used to do. But I let her know, like, oh, by the time I was in eighth grade, I got a little sidetracked. I got a little distracted. And she kind of chuckled and said, yeah, I know. And that lets me know, like, yeah, they knew what I was going through. They just didn't actually spell it out. But by the time I got into eighth grade, like, that single choice of it literally closed so many doors that I have no idea what kind of opportunities that I missed out on because the people around me, it's literally famous people to this day that went to my high school who didn't choose smoking weed, who didn't choose popping pills and stuff like that. They are, in professional UFC fighters. They professional UFC fighters that went to my school, or a professional race car driver that went to my school, or something like that. It's been a few people that got drafted from my high school, in spite of the fact that, and one of them was a black person. So just because I, was surrounded by all white people, don't mean that my neighborhood didn't produce talent. It just has way more temptations because our environment doesn't support talent. It doesn't develop or cultivate talent. You got to do that yourself. And that's something that I had to learn a hard way. Like they stripped our natural rite of passages away from us as a people. So we don't get to utilize these sports like the ancients did. Because the ancients used to use sports as a recourse as a safer recourse from warfare. So whenever tribes had like disagreements or rivalries, they'd make you have competitive sport engagements instead of killing each other. You see what I'm saying? But that's what opened up the put me on a path to go the wrong direction. And if I could take back anything in life, because I'm the kind of person that feel like I don't have any regrets per se, because I feel like we should be able to learn from all of our experiences. And if they don't kill you, it can only make you stronger, as long as you see the balance or the duality to it. Like, as long as we don't judge it and see the lesson of our mistakes, then it'll only make you stronger. As long as you don't continue to repeat the same mistakes and repeat the same cycles over and over again. So that's what really set the stage for me, is to know that this is who I am without the drugs. And I don't necessarily need the substances to express who I truly am. But at the time, that's what I felt like I needed it to help me sleep. I needed it to be a little more self-confident with myself, because I didn't know how to I didn't really develop that personality skills or social skills that I would like to, because I felt like I grew up kind of sheltered. You know what I mean? You there? Hello?
Yes, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here. Yep. So, so you changed. So, the main thing is I wanted to find out is that what kind of brought you into the addiction to heroin?
The painkillers, like going through high school, the pain I used to utilize social networks to find easy access to painkillers, because everybody has a friend that has a parent that takes painkillers. So if I couldn't find it myself per se, I would be able to like if I didn't have access to it myself, I would be able to make certain contacts with certain people who would be able to like locate it, and so because they grandparents might be using it. So one time I was giving a young girl a ride, and it just so happened that her grandparents was on the Vicodin, so she'd pay me in Vicodin instead of paying me gas money, so to speak. And that just, opened up that door where it was kind of easy access until the painkillers got kind of harder to find and got more expensive. And then that's when the very same people that I used to get the painkillers from, they'd say, well, they've already been dabbling in harder drugs, and they'll say, well, you could just try this H or this, and it'll be much cheaper per se than.
We lost your audio. We lost your audio.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead. Now I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, my bad.
Back up. Repeat what you just said. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was just the the loss of access to the pills itself that opened up the door, like do me through me trying to source for more painkillers. It was just they the very people that I was going to school with tried to persuade you to gravitate towards the harder stuff. I didn't realize that at first. They told me that it would be cheaper, but I didn't realize that it was the economy that was most beneficial to get more people involved, because drugs has its own economy. So if you have people under you, it's like a pyramid thing where if you can have people under you, you can sustain your own habit by having other people come through you, so to speak. And you can, they'll source it for you, but they're maintaining their habits by getting paid through you, so to speak. And I didn't realize the drug in the drug business has its own pyramid scheme, or its own economy to it, that pulls you in based on their own needs. and not necessarily doing you a favor, so to speak. At the time, I thought they were doing me a favor and trying to help me save money because the pills was getting more expensive and stuff like that. But I learned, that they was just trying to have, uh, that pyramid system where you can come through them and they can maintain their own addictions. You know what I mean?
Right. So, what was the difference between doing heroin and doing pills?
The difference for me was the fact that the pills was synthetic, while the heroin was more. The pills was more synthetic and complete, where I didn't. It did more damage on my liver, but I didn't go through withdrawals, so I didn't get sick until I tried the heroin for the first time, and that's what put me in a position where I wasn't even normal anymore until I got more, and got more drugs.
So when you
That was
so you were able to take the pills and still be normal, still kind of take it, but not have a withdrawal symptom because you wasn't really taking enough of it to like actually like feel the
no,
craving.
I was taking more than enough of it. Like I was taking more than enough of it. It's just it never made me sick without it. I would get, I would feel a slight fatigue where you have a sense of like not like having that full blown energy level that you would expect from having those, excess dopamine levels. But at the same time, you would feel like
Uh,
I have
your phone.
my
You're
audio's
moving.
going out.
Every time you move your phone too much, it starts to like go out. So you gotta like kind of keep your phone still.
All right.
So when you were doing the pills, it didn't give you as bad of a withdrawal symptom. So you were able to take it and be able to kind of still maintain. But once you got onto the heroin, that's where it became a true full fledged like if I don't take this, I'm gonna be sick, and now it starts the cycle, right?
Exactly.
How old were you when that started?
I want to say about 18. I want to say 18 exactly. Between 18 and 21. Between 18 and about 21.
So what happened? You were taking the pills, you couldn't get no pills. Did someone run out of pills and they said, you know what? Well, we don't have any pills, but you could just take this. And how did it go?
The supplier that I was going through for like oxycontins and stuff like that, that very same person was also after high school started dabbling with harder stuff, and he was the one who recommended to transition to harder stuff because the oxycontins was like $50 a pill, right, or $25 a pill depending on the milligram. But once you I was going sourcing it through him, and when it came to like harder stuff or like painkiller, like oxys and Percocets and stuff like that, so he would sell me something like a very expensive oxycontin pill that one pill will have you way messed up than a lot of but neither here nor there. That's what when I reached out to him again for more pills, that's when he was like, well, so and so, I'm finna go make the ride to go and pick me up some dope or whatever. If you want to come with us, it's only $20 a bag, so to speak. So it went from you can get a bag for $20 versus a pill that's maybe 25 or higher. You see what I'm saying?
So do you think that he purposely transitioned you over to that, or do you think that like it was just that he was out and couldn't get in? Do you think that it was like, let's put him, because you're going to the same person, right? This whole time, getting your supply, and all of a sudden it's almost like he transitioned you over to this new thing. Like, okay, hey, you can get like this for $20. So it's almost like he you were already addicted. So it's something he knows you're addicted. So it's just, you know what? Let's see if I can like switch him over to this. And
It's
now I
hard
can
for me.
really like have him like really like under like addiction, you know? What do you
That's
think
the
is going on in that situation? Because that's weird. Like why if you're asking for one thing, why would he even introduce you to something else like that? That's weird.
because it basically serves the same purpose in a sense. Like you're going for that dopamine high, so to speak. So to him, he felt like it'd be sometimes the painkillers, especially if you're looking for like the real stronger stuff, they're not always available through the same outlets, you know.
Mm.
But when you in the streets and you're dabbling in the streets, sometimes those things can be easier access, even if it's not always good quality. So
Mm.
I think it's really hard for me to say what another person's motives were,
Motivation, yeah.
but I do feel like low key it was the pyramid system, because once you introduce somebody, you are one of their only sources to obtain those things, because you know, like they don't really know a lot of places or sources to kind of or outlets to attain those sort of things. So you become their middleman for at least a good few months, you know what I mean?
And you know what it sounds like to me? Like, you know, it's harder to get those the pills. It's easier to get this thing. So he like almost chose to transition you over to that because
I
it's
think so.
easier.
Honestly, I do think so, because you know it that was the selling point for somebody like that. And then when you're in between addictions like that and you're going through it, you're almost willing to, you know, try
Do
something
anything.
new at that point. You're like
Yeah.
your frame of reference is a bit jaded. So it's like, well, why not? So my very first time trying it, I was still taking oxycontins too. So I remember
You were
literally
combining
having an
both of them?
oxycontin in my system while I was also doing that other stuff. So
Right.
that got me really close to, you know, too much at that point.
Oh wow. Wow. So you so he transitions you over to this new thing. And now, so did you automatically knew that you had to like keep taking this in order to not feel sick? Like, did you automatically know this, or was it like you felt sick and because you know you said the one thing that you were taking, you didn't feel that sick, or you might feel a little bit fatigued because you did it and whatever. You might feel tired or whatever, but then you transitioned over to this new thing that if you don't take this, now you're sick. Now you're feeling terrible. You know, you're throwing up. This at the other. Like, did you automatically knew what the purpose, what the reason, or why you felt sick, and that you needed to do more of it? Like, how did that kick into play? Come into play?
Well, yeah, like when I got sick, I knew why I was sick. Because, I mean, you hear about the withdrawals, but I didn't experience it until the first time I tried, you know, the harder stuff. So once I was sick, it was like the ball started rolling. And that's when the desperation kind of kicked in. And that's when the stealing started kicking in. Like I wasn't stealing from my parents until I got to that point where it was all or nothing. Like the the attainment of what I'm going for was worth the risk of getting myself, you know, in trouble for, you know, taking money out the my parents' piggy banks or something like that at the time.
Mm.
And when
So
I say
how?
pig,
So like, all right. So explain how this whole, because I imagine like a pill like situation. It's they're probably like slow acting. They probably like go throughout the day, like over time, right? Like that high of a pill, right?
right?
But you're taking now you're into a situation where this is like a different than a pill, right? So is it like it lasts for like about a couple hours and you feel sick immediately, or is it like does it last some time and then you start to feel sick? Like how does that how what happens?
It literally depends on the quality. It depends on all of those things, like how it's processed. But to long story short, you really have a very smaller window than with the pills. And I really didn't know that you have a smaller efficacy window. Like when you take like dope itself, you literally only, depending on the quality, like pills have a standard on how they produce those painkillers. You're gonna get the same quality with long as it's an authentic, genuine painkiller. But every every person who produces their own dope is gonna have higher or lesser quality. So that is gonna determine how long it's gonna last. And this, my first time doing it was before fentanyl hit the street. So I do have to emphasize that this was actual real heroin. It wasn't fentanyl.
Let's not say
The
the word.
first
You
time,
say H. Let's say H.
right.
You
So
got you.
sorry about that. Well, it's just depending on the quality, and depends on who you're going through and how it's processed, because it's going to be the same across the board for painkillers. But when it comes to dope or H, you have to know that you're getting it from a respectable, or a trustworthy source that's not gonna try to overly dilute it or make it too strong, because it's so many risks to it. It could be too strong or too weak. And at this point, I was still working. So I was trusting the people. I was going through users to help me attain it, because you never want to go through another user, because you can't trust somebody who has their own addictions. But at the same time, if you don't know anybody else to attain it, then you got to do what you got to do. And I would be in a position where I have to give them the money, and I just have to trust whatever they give me. You know what I mean?
Oh my
But
God.
I was working at the time, so it put me in a position where not only do I have to trust what they're giving me, but I also have to trust that it's going to get me through a full day of work or a full work schedule without getting myself sick.
Oh
And
my.
needless to say, they felt like if they continue to shortchange you, because they were the ones that was using too, like they knew that you were their middleman, so they would put you in a position where you you know have to continue to keep coming back to them, so to speak. And
Wow.
I would literally end up getting sick while I was at work, because they would turn around and rip you off like that. You see what I'm saying?
Explain getting sick. And how can you go to work on this stuff? Like, doesn't it make you sleepy? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's like the ones that, because you said you weren't really shooting it. You were just what? How were you taking it at the time? How were you? How were you? What was your method at the time?
Through the nose, through the nostrils. But at the same time, this was when
Your phone is muted. There you go. Oh, hold on. Uh oh. Okay, now I can hear you. Go ahead. Say it.
okay, well, when you feel like you're sick, like your body is, you get really irritable very fast. And the smallest, it feels like you're going through a flu. The same way you feel when you have a flu symptoms, where like if you touch something cold, like your whole body feels it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you have to sweat a lot, and you're just sitting there sweating for nothing. And people are looking at you like, why are you sweating? It's not even that hot in here. But like you had to kind of make up an excuse to kind of go home, or get out, get out the store, or wherever you're at, because you end up going through very severe flu symptoms. That's like the best way I can explain it.
Almost like immediately, like in a short period of time.
No, it's progressive. It gets worse and worse as the body starts dropping down in natural dopamine levels, which is why I had to learn how to heal myself naturally through the sun. because God was the spirit world was showing me like, you don't need these things to build up that high, but they don't teach you that what the high that you're looking for is not the same thing as bliss, because they'll create a drug called ecstasy without telling you that ecstasy nirvana, a form of bliss or nirvana that comes from you simply being whole and being more connected between the spirit world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because ecstasy isn't a drug, it's a state of being, it's a state of mind. It just
Right.
depends on how you spell it.
So you're trying to get through your day, and then all of a sudden, I guess this thing wears off. It's hard to really understand this to a person that probably have never experienced this. To like think, imagine like this thing at this point. This is how you feel normal, right? Like without it, you don't feel normal. So in order for you to go to work, you have to like take this thing, and if you don't take it, you don't feel normal anymore, right? Did it make you sleepy? Because every time they show like people that are taking this substance, you see them nod out. Explain what happens during that nod out. What is that about? I know some people say it just only happens in the first phase of it. People might be wondering how can you go to work if this is what you're doing and not be like like looking crazy and like nodding off and this that the other. Can you kind of get into that? Because like people probably don't even understand like what this is really like. What is the thing that it entails?
So, how do I say it? When you have a excess amount of like dopamine and endorphins, it puts your body in a state of being extra relaxed. Where like when somebody is talking to you, you can hear that extra slur. It's almost like when you're on alcohol too, and somebody's talking to you on alcohol, and
Mhm,
their speech is a little slurred. Well,
mhm.
you can hear that slur, like because your body is producing excess amounts of dopamine, so that is naturally produced when you are going to sleep too, because you
Mm.
got your like all that dopamine and that melatonin and all of that kind of being balanced out. But you like if you close your eyes, you can easily kind of like take a quick nap without actually falling asleep per se.
So you're
And
awake.
that's
So you're awake. So even though a person might be in that sleep kind of thing, they're actually aware of everything going on.
somewhat, it's like a middle point between being asleep and being awake. And that's what I was always looking for in a spirituality, because I didn't understand it. You know what I'm saying? Like as a Pisces, you're always going to be in between both worlds. So the H though, or the painkillers, it lets you like close your eyes and experience like that lucid state of like being asleep but being kind of conscious at the same time. And I remember going to sleep as a child and being asleep, but being able to hear like the TV running. So I never understood like how was I able to hear my surroundings while I was still asleep. But because I was always the kind of person that was always like in between both worlds, I would kind of gravitate towards something that will help me sleep or help me express that astral projection and that lucid dreaming that I would always do naturally. But once I tried the Vicodin, the painkillers, that's what flipped the switch for me. Like it allowed you to like do it with ease without necessarily trying to, but it'll give you a glimpse of it. It's like a glass ceiling, so to speak, where you'll get a glimpse of that lucid dream without actually knowing what's going on. You won't have a lot of memory retention to it or a lot of power behind your dreams. So you'll just get a quick glimpse of doing like leaving your body. You'll feel the vibrations and everything, but it'll go away, so to speak. Like that,
So
we call it a quickening. that vibration when your spirit leaves your body and you actually start to astral project. You go through a quickening.
Do you feel like an ego death that happens, or is it like a hallucination period, or is it just completely like a body? No, it's not hallucinatory. Like you're not going into another realm. It's just a body thing where you just are in your body, but you feel like that space between sleep and wake. That in
A bit
between.
of both. It's not hallucinations because by the time you close your eyes, you only see things when you close your eyes and you enter the dream world, but you're still partly awake. So I consider hallucinating when you're still awake, but you start seeing things while you're still awake, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Right. No, because I've done ayahuasca before, but when you take ayahuasca, you are completely gone. Like you close your eyes
Right.
and you are in another realm, but you open your eyes and you're right there. You know what I'm saying? You're still in the same room. So but you might see a little bit of like I
No,
might
it's nothing like that. It's nothing compared to ayahuasca. The only time you experience visions is when you close your eyes and actually be able to nod out, and that nodding the nodding
um your audio just went out again.
the nodding part is what people gravitate to the most, and is what's the most addictive.
That's what they want to do. They want to get the nod.
Exactly, because that's when you're
Wow.
at the point where you're most relaxed and you're most like dead to the world.
Mm.
You like you don't feel as much, but you're like overly stimulated in pleasure, so to speak. So it's a lot easier to just close your eyes and just kind of fall asleep without trying. Like your body just kind of wants to drift away. And that's why it's so easy to overdose, because you don't notice it's coming because you're all automatically just drifting away anyway.
Wow. Wow. So it's not even hallucinogenic. It's just like you are in your body feeling this level of pleasure, almost like is it an orgasmic type of feeling?
Well, no, not like that. You know how that we say that sleep is the cousin of death?
Mm-hmm.
That's because when you're going to sleep, your body produces the same chemical compounds that occurs when you die. Like you start producing natural levels of DMT, you start producing natural levels of melatonin and those endorphins. So your life kind of flashes. Your life flashes like that because you're in that dream state and that lucid state. Now, because sleep is the cousin of death, we don't realize we're in between. Like sleep is a form of it's a form of dying and being reborn every single day. Like every time you go to sleep, you're literally dying just to be reborn every single day. And
Mm.
your body has to go through those phases so it doesn't become overwhelmed with day-to-day uh stimulant, day-to-day stress and stimulation. So if you produce way more of those hormones that will put you to sleep like that, you can phase out into a death phase.
Mm.
If you know what I mean, because it's literally the same process. You're just not overdoing it when you're sleeping. Your body has a natural measurement or a natural time clock to produce these hormones. But if you choose to simulate the hormones, if you because that's what the pills do. It just mimics what we already produce naturally.
You know
So
what? I always, there's been times when I've been exhausted, right? I have sleep apnea. And so there's been times where, like, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I get like this feeling of just being very tired. I could be on the phone talking to somebody. Hell, I think I even did it during the show. Is that, like I could hear what's going on around me, but I'll be asleep. And then a person will say, "Hey," like how you just said, "Hey," I actually literally, because I have sleep apnea, I fell asleep kind of, but I was still in this like kind of in between state of being sleepy and being awake, right? And that's just part of like, I didn't use my CPAP last night, so it made me very tired today. So like right around this time is when that kind of sleep kind of thing kicks in when you don't use the CPAP because you have hypoxia like that happens when you don't sleep right. So right around this time I'll get like sleepy and I might close my eyes and just feel a little sleepy, right? But I can hear everything going on around me. And I'm not sure if you said, hey, you still there? But I heard it. I woke up and I was like, oh yeah, I'm still here. And I was able to like say, hey, yeah, what's going on? So I could hear what's going on. There's some parts I kind of heard, some parts I didn't hear, but it was like this in between. I wasn't all the way just knocked out sleep. I was able to hear what you were saying, but I would kind of like have moments of drifting into a dream and coming back out of it, listening to what you're saying, drifting off into a little dream, and then, but then when you say, "Hey, did you hear me?" So I think I might have been in dream state a little bit when you said, "Hey, are you there?" And so I come right back up, and I'm like, "Hey, yeah, I'm here." Is it
Right.
kind of a similar thing like that? Like when you're
Yes,
really
it
super
is.
duper
Now,
sleepy, like
now
being really sleepy and tired, like, and then you just where sleep overcomes you and you just can't control it and you just really get tired.
it is a lot like that where you, how do I say it? Like, you know how people are natural sleepwalkers, right? You got
Mm-hmm.
your sleepwalking people who I found that typically your earth signs, people who are typically Capricorns and your earth signs tend to lean towards sleepwalking
Mm.
because they are so deep into their dreams that they literally live out and act out their dreams, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
because they're so grounded. You know what I mean? Now, that can become problematic because you don't want to live out your dreams. So it's literally the same thing as taking ayahuasca and having some like a shaman watch over you because you start to act out the dream world and thinking that the dream is your reality. You know what I mean? So, like, it's literally tantamount to sleepwalking or being in a day-to-day activity, but your body is calling you to drift away and trying to give you a message. And the only way you can get that message is to close your eyes and go to a meditative state. They used to say that about Harriet Tubman and like certain certain mediums, like in order to get their message they can't necessarily see their visions in the awakened state. They have to be partly asleep and partly awake, so they'll kind of fall down and fall to their knees or kind of go into a slight quickening or a slight possession state, if you will, and that's when they'll be able to channel those visions and those messages. And people who are in between both worlds like that, they are our natural mediums. They are
Mm.
natural born shamans. They just don't know how to express it. And then they'll go to the hospital and say, "This is what I'm going through," and they'll give you psychotropic medications, or they'll give you like those barbiturates like Xanax and stuff like that to try to you know try to nullify and try to uh, minimize that potential so you can't really access it. But we got to do is ground that energy, and when you become more grounded, those dreams, like when you go to sleep, those dreams will become more vivid and you'll be able to remember everything that you're dreaming. And that was the disconnect, was being able, like, your body is trying to get you to retain more dream memory. And the people who are supposed to come through those visions and come back with a message, because they are the natural anchors of the spirit world, that's what you're doing, is anchoring all those higher vibrations in your body, but your body is not really able to process all of that energy, so it's putting you to sleep in order for you to process it. And when the frequencies and energies and vibrations are so powerful, you have to go to sleep in order for your body to assimilate it. And that's what you know causes you to sleepwalk, or stuff like that, because you'll be acting it out because you're not fully anchored in your root chakra, your root, and so you don't get convoluted between the dream world and the reality. That's what we call mental illness, is not being able to distinguish your reality from reality from the dream world. You know
From
what I
the
mean?
dream world. Wow. I was talking about when I did the show about spirit boxes. I was talking about the fact that when I went, I have had anesthesia before, and there's this thing ketamine, and with the ketamine, it separates your body from your mind so that you don't feel what's going on when they're operating on you. So there's like a separation of body, mind separation. And then you
Uh-huh.
kind of feel like you actually see, like, I mean, so there is a slight hallucin, I'll say, a slight hallucinogenic effect that happens to where you actually will see almost like a computer screen. It's weird. Like, I actually feel like I was in the multiverse. It was weird. But do you think that that's what really was going on with Michael Jackson when he was taking with his situation? Because I think he was always talking about how he couldn't sleep. So it was always a situation where he's like, "Well, I couldn't sleep that much, and I just wanted to sleep. It was the best sleep I've ever gotten." You know? What do you think
Michael
about that?
Jackson's situation, his situation was a bit more complex and a little bit more complicated. He had so many in order for him to sleep, because he was going through so many surgeries coming up. He had all them plastic surgeries, and he burnt himself with the Pepsi commercial and all of that. Like, that was the early stages of him taking painkillers, is when he did that Pepsi commercial and he burnt his hair and all of that. And a lot of his face and everything was literally burnt. You see what I'm saying? So he had real third degree burns that he had to treat, and I think that really opened up the door. But him being such a hard worker and such a perfectionist, that really puts a lot of pressure on you, because he is, one of the greatest. So at the end of the day, his situation was a little bit more complicated, but he was very much into spirituality too. He had his own mirror room, a room full of nothing but mirrors that he would use to go and meditate in. So that's not like common knowledge, but you can look into it. Like, his mansion had a mirror room that he'd go into for divination purposes. So Michael Jackson
What?
was
So
very
like
much.
that's going into like portals. That's dealing with portals. So he had like a bunch of mirrors. Like what?
It's a way to access. It's a form of scrying. You use mirrors. Like, back in the day, they used to use water puddles until they created these same mirrors for obsidian, like through obsidian, the rock obsidian, to create to alter your subconscious mind. So you put on a mask. So it's hard for your subconscious mind to distinguish yourself from how you see yourself, right? Your subconscious mind believes you
Isn't that
are
what
who
they
you.
were also doing with the Scientology, where they make you look at each other, and then the person starts to like change form by staring at each other for a long period? Because I heard that if you look in a mirror for a long period of time, your image will start to shift and change. You'll see different beings and creations and all type of stuff.
Right, but those is part of your own aura. Those are the beings that's literally in your own aura. So when you use mirror magic and total magic, that's goes back to scrying, and you'll notice, like, forgot his name. It's a Toltec god. I want to say Chakma. Just Chakma comes to mind, but I forgot his name, but track minds was coming to mind. But he's holding a bottle of water in his lap, and he's looking up in like a different direction, but he's holding a bottle, like a cup of water in his lap, and that water is the very first mirror or reflection. And they would use totems, like usually animal masks, to to recondition the subconscious mind from seeing, to tap into the animal medicine, because everything is connected through the subconscious mind, right? Everything in life and everything in nature is connected. So they would tap into the medicine by shifting their perspective through wearing these masks, and and gazing into the water, and meditating through those masks. So you got to condition your subconscious to be able to see yourself through the eyes or through the lens of that animal, whether it's an apex predator or whether it's the eagle in the sky. All of these animals have natural instincts that are a reflection the divine of the divine itself, right? Like cats have master agility, and bears are very good at protecting, and they're very maternal, or they're very fierce and stuff like that. So when you wear those masks, you tap into recondition the subconscious mind, so your brain doesn't see yourself through your problems or through the lens that you've been conditioned to. You're reconditioning yourself in a sense. And that's what ayahuasca is very good for, that because ayahuasca will do that for you without you going. Ayahuasca will do that without you even trying to do it. You know what I mean? That's why you got to have a shaman with you who will help guide you through that process, so you can clear out a lot of those spiritual demons that's been latching on to you. When I say demons, I'm talking about these lower vibrational, we call them ghosts. Ghosts is like a disembodied thought form or disembodied consciousness that don't have a body, but they didn't transition. And it comes from the word logos. Logos is what we get the word, like a design or an intention of something. So everybody has their own imprint or blueprint. So ghost is like a part of the word logos in Greek, and that's your those thought forms that will latch on to your energy body, because you're not using it and you're not anchored correctly. So if you're an open, or if your aura is open and vulnerable, they can easily latch on to that energy. And when you're in addiction, that's when your aura is most open and exposed. And every time I would use during that time period, that's when I felt myself being spiritually attacked the most.
Mm. So let's break down, the spirituality and addiction. Let's break down the spirituality of addiction and how this whole thing is really a spiritual manifestation in some way.
So addiction is nothing more than repressed, bottled up emotions that needs to be channeled. Like, everybody is born with everything that they need to be complete. Like, you know how they say God gave you everything that you need to the moment you're born, every creature has everything they need to navigate life and to facilitate their survival. Every creature, whether it's an apex predator or so-called prey, even the prey has the ability to like evade and mimic or camouflage. So no matter what level you are in nature, you have power to defend yourself, and you have power to survive, right? So because you're born whole, addictions are nothing more than the additions or additives that we add to we think it's making us more whole because all of these substances come from the spirit world and they come from the plant kingdom. And when you abuse entheogens, because you don't realize that the entheogens are literally those substances that help you tap into the spirit world so you can help yourself integrate with the aspects that you might be missing on a nutritional level, right? Until you become more whole again. They're not things that you're supposed to take consistently or do like forever. These these are things that you use to help, like, mitigate things until you become more integrated. So if you don't realize that the plants itself are a microcosm of the planets, and they all serve as a various energy signature, so you can be fully whole to express yourself in like, you trying to balance and complete what is already like yourself through nature, so to speak, because you're a product of nature. But because we see things as divided and we see things like ourselves separate from nature, then use more we use separated versions or chemical compounds of these drugs instead of going straight to the source. So whenever you use a broken up chemical byproduct of something, like, that's what the pharmaceutical industry is known for. Like, everything about capitalism is about taking what's already from the source and creating a byproduct of what's the source already created, to make you go through them as the middleman, so to speak. But because it's not complete, we're not getting a complete form of nutrition when we take a pill from something, because it doesn't have all the minerals together. So, like, if you eat refined sugar or something like that, it's lacking all the minerals for your body to naturally process it. So you end up with diabetes and hormonal instabilities and stuff like that, because you're taking, sugars that's not complete with all the minerals for your body to process it the way and assimilate it naturally. So for your body to assimilate it naturally, your body has to use components or minerals that's already in you, which will drain your body of more minerals. So
Right.
every time you eat processed food, because it's not complete, your body has to use more minerals. Instead of you getting nutrition, you're taking nutrition out of your body.
You know
So
what I
that's the
noticed is that even with like when you take MDMA, right?
uh-huh.
You would have, if you wanted, if your thing was going down. Now MDMA, I think, there is like some natural occurring thing within your brain that is really pushing out serotonin very hard in your brain, and then it to the point where your neuroreceptors begin to almost retract, and then they grow back. Um, uh, Probably dis all kind of, disorganized and everything like this. But what they say, a lot of time people would do is they would drink orange juice or eat oranges to actually bring back that same, like when they felt that the high was going down, they would drink orange juice or eat oranges or vitamin C, because it depletes the vitamin C in your body when you take MDMA. Uh, Someone asked about mushrooms. All this stuff it's all like pretty much, the bottom line is that the spirituality behind this whole thing, you're not supposed to abuse it. It's really supposed to be used for a specific purpose,
Right.
maybe to get to a certain thing. But the thing is that because of capitalism, they know how to create the compound a certain way to where you crave it. It only lasts a certain amount of time, and then you become addicted to it. Now, the only
Only
thing about
because
that particular thing with the H thing is that I heard that it directly attaches to your DNA and becomes a part of your bodily DNA, and that's why you become sick on it. Because same thing with also alcohol, it becomes a part of your DNA.
I would well I could probably say it would alter some of your the molecular structure of some of your like your DNA to an extent. I wouldn't say it like your DNA is subject to change through epigenetics. So anything you put into your body will kind of modify your genetic structure just a bit, but you can
Mhm,
correct those modifications through nature. You know
mhm,
what I mean? Like because we're so connected with nature, no matter what you do, it depends on how far you go down that road, though. But you can like uh painkillers and abusing those sort of things. Like I can't use ecstasy or X or MDMA as an example because that wasn't one of my go-tos. Like the opiates were, so to speak. But at the same time, I have tried it, and everything that I've experimented with, I was able to tap into naturally. Whether it was marijuana, whether it was MDMA, whether it was Adderall, it doesn't matter. Adderall was my choice to produce the same effect that MDMA would do. You know what I mean? Like Adderall, it's a lot of pharmaceutical versions of hard street drugs out there that we don't realize that the doctors are actually creating pharmaceutical versions. So I would use Adderall for the very same reason that somebody would use MDMA for. You know what I mean?
mhm, mhm.
So,
But the
but
whole, but the whole thing that what it really boils down to is that these things are functions of the body that are natural things that actually happen naturally if you know how to tune into them correctly. It's just that we lost the ability to know how to tune in and make these things happen without external, or maybe it's a thing that we don't even wear that we even have this feeling. Like I know that I always wondered is that when I saw a person nodding off, I was wondering. I've always wondered is that the same thing that happens when I get really tired? You know, when a person has like narcolepsy, is that like a similar thing that's happening? Is what's happening there? Because a person with narcolepsy can be asleep, listen, hear everything going on around them, and and then they wake up and everything like this. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing. Uh, be in such a relaxed state, but at the same point they are just kind of like in this lucid dreaming, this lucid state in dream world, in this dreamy thing. So that would be the similarity that happens in that situation, right?
it
um
really is. It really is because a lot of people who are modern day narcoleptics wouldn't be the kind of person that would be operating heavy machinery back in those days. Those are the people that would be designated for the temples. They would be the temple priests. They would be the the medicine men. And we got to realize that medicine has the word meaning like the middle, the medium aspect, because
mm,
there's a spiritual medium to medicine, and all medicine comes from mediumship. Like you don't guess what plants you're supposed to take in nature. That information comes to you through mediumship. You know what I mean? And these whenever you come up with a recipe for food or a recipe for health situations, like it's no different like a diagnosis. The word diagnosis literally has gnosis as the root word. How are you going to be diagnosing if you're not a gnostic? You know what I mean? Like
wow.
you can't. The ancients would diagnose your problems based on being able to see what's going on with you through your energy body. They would be able to
Mhm.
connect with you through your energy body and have that the medium between you, your problems, and whatever's going on to know what you need through nature to balance that. Because nature is just going to provide that balance so you could become whole. Well, you'll never become whole through pills. You'll never become whole through synthetic artificial drugs because it's not created holistically. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yep.
So it keeps
Absolutely.
you in a cycle. It keeps you in a state of addiction because addiction is just the lack of wholeness. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Wow.
because addiction is just nothing but the additional aspects that you need to become whole again. All
And
of the jargon aside, all of that pharmaceutical, like medical jargon aside, you're just not whole, and you need uh that that nature component or natural component to find that wholeness again. But we're disconnect from nature, so we're now going through doctors to find wholeness. We're going through the drug guy to find wholeness now. You see what I'm saying?
you know
Instead of
what's
the
even deeper?
shamans and
You know
medicine
what?
men, we're going to our doctors.
You know what's even deeper is that we also have addictions to each other. People, I could be addicted to a man. You could be addicted to a woman. You know what I'm saying? Or another or another man or another woman. You know, both, whatever. And so, and the pleasure that that person gives you, whether it be even just being around them, they might trigger a certain dopamine response. So a lot of times what happens in relationships is that a person knows how to trigger your nervous system, and then also get then be able to be the very person that brings you back into equilibrium. To, you know, they know how, like, this is a really classic thing. Have you ever, like, gotten had a person like trigger you, make you very angry, and then you make up, right? You have like this makeup situation going on, right? So all
Mhm.
this stuff is like a high and a low that triggers a addictive, like addiction, those things in our brain. So you have a cortisol response, and then you have a dopamine hit when that person's able to then, when things resolve, and then the serotonin hits it, and that love thing goes in, and now you guys are probably, you know, getting it in, or whatever it is that's going on. Or it might even just be that y'all are just being in each other's presence after you guys have gotten finished arguing and getting pissed off at each other. But that's an addiction as well. So even we can be addicted to each other. And
That's called, okay. So the word bonding, when we call bonding, is part of that. When you bond with something, that's literally the integration between your spirit and a like a physical item. Like everything has an energy to it, so you can bond with things that form a spiritual connection with you, even without you realizing it. Like you, and that's what you call trauma bonds, right?
mm-hmm.
You're now bonded to each other's mutual pain. You're bonded to each other's mutual trauma, but you haven't yet figured out how to rewrite those bonds to find a healthy value system, because you got to bond with your higher values, not just with like people who have the same traumas as you. But because you don't know how to find that fulfillment, that is how you're gonna bond, is through trauma bonds, you know?
Right. So there's always like this kind of argument that happens, and then you, that's
Right,
where,
but that's a
but
form of addiction, like you said, because there's that dopamine hit. You got the high and low because you're codependent now. Like you feel codependent on that relationship. So
mhm.
no
You know,
matter how
they always say that people that are on drugs, they normally have like the longest relationships ever.
right,
And,
because they
and so
they
they're
have
not
a
only
trauma
addicted to the
bond
drugs, but they
relationship
also
though.
have an addiction to each other in with that whole situation. That's why they last. There's such a like a bond that happens with those two people, and they damn near are very toxic to each other. It's they don't even need to be together. Like when you actually look on the people on the outside looking at this relationship, will be like, why in the heck are you guys even together? Like, what's going
Yeah,
on?
a lot of most relationships, especially a lot of long-term marriages, were just basically long-term trauma bonds. And I hate
Mm,
to say it, but I grew up in a household where my parents were literally sleeping in different rooms every single night. Like
mm,
they tolerated each other. But because my father was the main provider and my mother was somewhat codependent on his stability, even though he was like very irascible or easily agitated, easily angered, he didn't physically abuse anybody. since his alcoholistic days, he used to be physically abusive. But after he got off of alcohol, before he met my mother, he he always would be very threatening and very imposing. But that imposingness never really turned into a physical abusive situation. You
Just
just
back up.
knew,
You just be your nervous system is always on cortisol like a 10. It's
yeah.
always on high
But
because you don't know what walking on
at
the
the same time,
eggshells.
though, he was such a like such a protector that you knew like you had nothing to worry about as long as you were with him. And my mother felt very protected as long as he was around, even though they couldn't go out in public without getting into arguments all the time. So that was very much a trauma bond where they my father never healed from um his childhood pain of feeling like he was rejected and through by his family. So
Mhm.
he had to compensate through alcoholism due to his perceived rejections in life, and my perceived rejections or perceived being isolated like that. I was compensating not with alcohol because I couldn't stand alcohol. I was always very sensitive to it, but it was the weed that really brought an affinity to my life that brought me a codependency and a more of a trauma bond. Like I'm trauma bonding with the weed too, not just with the person, or
Mhm.
friends. And honestly, I
Right,
think
right, right. Because weed always has a group that's involved with it. Everybody passing it around in circles, and
exactly,
so,
and that was the main selling point for me in my mind that led me to becoming addicted. Is that because I wasn't so socially expressive or comfortable with myself that way I wanted to be, I felt like the weed itself or the painkillers or whatever the case may be would be the middleman to open up those social doors and be that social connection that I felt like I was missing. You know what I mean?
so now that you're kind of like in this recovery phase, I know that what they'll say is that these things do deplete a lot of things. They deplete serotonin, they deplete like dopamine. You have to like take things to even be able to stay off of them in order to like not have such a severe reaction to them. You know, even the things they do give you to stay away from them also have its own effects. Like if you're into if you are a heroin addict, they'll give you methadone, but methadone eats away at your bones. How do you feel about like I mean, are you right now going through like the methadone situation to where you have to take that to like stay off of like to like stay away from like the effects of the heroin type of thing?
That's the thing. There's a balance to everything, and you're right. Methadone will eat away at your bone minerals and make your bones weaker, just like any painkiller or just like any synthetic pill. Anything that you eat or take that is processed and not natural is going to pull from your natural mineral structure in order for your body to assimilate it and digest it properly because it doesn't naturally contain all the minerals that your body is going to need to fully assimilate it and make it a part of your body. Like pills isn't a natural product. It's not a part of us like that. But they do what they can to create a synthetic compound to where it mimics those same hormonal reactions instead of actually being natural.
Mm-hmm.
So all you got to do is learn to eat healthy, eat natural, and eat any apple. If you take a bite out of an apple, everything that everything you put in your body becomes a part of you. So if you eat an apple, all the minerals is going to be reborn inside of your body in the form of your hair cells, in the form of your skin cells, in the form of your bone structure and stuff like that. So as I was taking pills and stuff like that, I noticed I would end up breaking my nails off very easily, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
would just kind of go to scratch my leg a little bit, like how you would naturally just kind of scratch an itch. But I would literally break my nail off just by casually scratching an itch. And I'm like, dang, my minerals are very, very low. Well, the average person would go to the pharmacy. I knew better. I never went to the pharmacy to solve these natural holistic problems. All I did was eat some blueberries, and all the minerals in that blueberries grew my nails back. You see what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
when we say you are what you eat, we don't mean that figuratively. You literally are what you eat. You are what you take, because we are made of the same minerals that are in the soil, made of the same you know elements that are in our environment. We just got to become one with it, so we're not like becoming codependent on synthetic things and looking outside of ourselves for help in that sense.
I want to make this into a series, and I want to like really like begin to break things down into like, okay, how does one recover from addiction? What kind of minerals can we take? Like, okay, because I believe that each different drug that you can actually get into depletes the body a certain way. So, and it's also probably like even a matter of the fact that it is compensating for depletion, right? So, how do you get over that depletion? What kind of vitamins you could take to kind of help with those things that get depleted, so that you can be able to maybe even eventually get more healthier and overcome. I know that alcohol, it attacks your magnesium. It gives you too much sugar in the body. It messes with your
Everything, everything, as far as every mineral in nature, like you said, magnesium. I noticed that the more magnesium I put into my body, the more photoreceptive I am. Because magnesium is the main molecule that is the difference between our hemoglobin in our blood cells versus the plant chlorophyll. The only difference between our hemoglobin and the plant chlorophyll is that magnesium base. So if you build up more magnesium, just like the plants, you'll become more photoreceptive. And we are natural walking trees. So everything has its purpose, and I would supplement a little bit of magnesium, and I had to learn that I could cure my own addictions, but just from a little bit of magnesium, just spending a few minutes outside in the sun would shorten the time length that would require me to be outside to build up vitamin D, if that makes sense. So instead of
Mm,
me spending like 15, 20 minutes out in the sunlight with a little bit more plant chlorophyll in me or magnesium, I don't like supplementing because it's not complete like that. And you don't want to have things just ice. You don't want isolated minerals like that. You don't want they try to sell it to you isolated because they know it's stripping away more nutrients from your body instead of giving it to you. But just temporarily, I was just kind of experimenting because I've always been very sensitive, so I could just do a little bit of something and be able to get the results from it. And I would supplement with magnesium just as an experiment. And but this was when I was already sunbathing and sun gazing, and I found out that that magnesium helped me tap into the sun like tenfold. I was like, wow. So
so
I was able to,
magnesium, you're saying that magnesium helps you to absorb vitamin D better? I
yeah,
know that they say
that
K2, vitamin K2 or something like that helps you to absorb vitamin D. I have a vitamin.
magnesium is is the it's the that green pigment that's in the chlorophyll. The root of magnesium is the magnet. You're becoming more magnetized, and you're able to absorb more sunlight, just like plants have to photosynthesize sunlight for nutrition. You need that magnesium for photosynthesis as well. So you're able to photosynthesize way more effectively with the sun when you are adequate in magnesium intake. You know what I mean? Like, but that's just eating plants. You don't eating plant-based foods. You don't want to supplement it.
Well, I'm one that I like suffer from anemia because I lose a lot of blood every month. I have a what's it called? I have a thyroid issue, and I have like
Ain't that an iron deficiency though?
yeah, I have a very low iron and very low vitamin D. Like, I mean, it's like damn near like like what's it called when you have to get like a infusion or whatever. I'm like that level of like vitamin iron
You need
deficiency.
a whole blood transfusion.
Sometimes like I'm like damn near to that level of vitamin D deficiency, and
Yeah, it'll get. We don't realize how important these
not
things
vitamin D.
are.
I'm sorry, iron because I lose a lot of blood during my menstrual cycle. I lose so much blood because I have a
That's
fibroid.
just because our diet isn't optimized with
No, no,
plant-based
I
food.
have a fibroid. So the fibroid, which I don't know where fibroids come from, but whatever that fibroid is it makes me bleed excessively, and so I lose so much blood every month that I am down there. I got like I talked to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "Man, you are, you know, it's really bad. Like you have to leave. Like your iron is so low. Like I'm."
Yeah,
And,
but
and I would be
that
eating, so
is
I'd be eating. I don't even know why I eat ice. I mean, I could like eat a whole big cup of ice. And it's
I think
crazy. I'm
that'll
like,
be good for the next topic because we do need to touch on the effects of being minerally deficient and how that leads to depression and how that leads to hormonal imbalances and how it's very easy to optimize your minerals like this, but all you got to do is eat fruits and vegetables, and you got to be careful with the vegetables that you are eating because a lot of it is starchy and a lot of it is really not natural the way that it's supposed to be. So even though when people think they're eating healthy, they're still eating unhealthy because they're not eating holistic food that is actually grown in the wild. We're eating a lot of man-made hybrid plants that Dr. Sebi would try to get us off of. You know what I mean? That's why it's important to kind of learn those lessons from Dr. Sebi and, listen to some of the elders that was kind of setting the stage for us because we're not all supposed to eat and live the same way. We are sun children. We are literally sun children. We're not saying that as a metaphor. We are children of the sun. So
mm,
just because some people feel like the sun is harmful to them, the sun is very much a necessity for some other people. Like if you don't get the sun, that will be cause you the very harm that will happen to others when they do get the sun. Like it's
mm,
just the exact opposite. We're children of the sun, they're not. So we need that sun to produce that vitamin D. Otherwise, you're not gonna just attain it naturally just by itself without either eating it from like mushrooms that absorb vitamin D or being out in the sun because you'll have to obtain it some way from your environment because your body doesn't produce it by itself. A lot of these hormones or nutritions are attained from the environment. So it can't just be like, your body doesn't generate it but, without you receiving the necessary elements and food intake to get it from.
right. So, I wanted to give like a final word, but as we close this show out, this has been a very, I think, informative show. And I hope that people really got some information that they could use. We talked about a very wide plethora. You got to hear. This is my new guest, Mandela Ellis, and he's going to be getting into like addiction, getting into vitamins, getting into supplementation, spirituality, all these things. And we're going to have him here regularly to discuss some of these things, so that because this channel is about becoming a better person. And one of the biggest thing is that people don't even realize that they have addictions, but when they do have addictions, they don't know how to stop them. And a lot of this stuff might be even based on a deficiency that you're really trying to compensate for, whether it be a mental deficiency, whether it be a vitamin deficiency, whether it be a mineral deficiency. A lot of addictions come from some level of deficiency. And when we talk about the spirituality of it all, a lot of these substances that are out here were really meant to be taken by shamans for a specific effect, but we abuse those things because there's some level of trauma in our thing that we're trying to heal, and we have to like understand that and actually deal with the exact trauma. Let's get to the root of the cause. So let's hear about the last words that you want to say before we close this out. We're 2 hours in, and what's your last words?
I feel like there's so many people out there that are very spiritual, but they become their spirituality is pathologized by the society. So they don't know how to express those gifts that they have because they might see things like they can look up and see a UFO like I've seen before in my life, but I can't just tell anybody or everybody about it. So there's certain things that we are capable of doing or experiencing that a lot of people don't understand it, that we can't always open up about to everybody because they will get you institutionalized. And I know people who that has happened to. And people are very like especially our people, we are children of shamans, and we are the children of generational medicine healers that used to like heal people or have various gifts. And because they broke us up from our culture, we don't know how to interpret these things properly. So our perception is a lot sicker than just our mind in and of itself, because it starts off with your perception, and then everything else kind of follows suit after they've planted that wrong like that wrong perception on you, so to speak. So now you're in that cycle of going to the doctor to treat things that was naturally spiritual or naturally holistic anyway. So we had to learn that a there's a difference between like addiction and there's a difference between like these spiritual problems and addictions in of itself, because 90% of the things that we go to the hospital for are what we call mental illness, is literal spiritual afflictions that we do not know how to deal with. And if we knew how to just channel energy instead of holding on to it, because depression is a very real issue. And if we don't know how to channel that energy and redirect it into the soil, or go to, just step outside while it's raining, while it's barefoot, because the air becomes polarized and charged. The atmosphere becomes charged during rainstorms. So that's the best time to ground yourself, because it creates a channel between you and the earth. And you can literally dump all of that energy into the soil, and you feel literally reborn, like over like in a matter of a couple, like a day, or or so like that. But there's Indian mounds too. If you go to your local parks and local forest preserves, you'll notice how they turned a lot of these parks, those were they turned a lot of sacred sites and a lot of like holy sites from the ancestors into forest preserves and parks, because that made it easiest for the government to declare eminent domain and to seize these sacred burial grounds, because it's illegal to confiscate burial grounds if you can prove that like there's actual like remains in that area, unless they declare eminent domain and make it like public property. So they use eminent domain to confiscate a lot of land after a lot of land protection orders started coming about in early 1900s and stuff like that. So a lot of these parks, even though they desecrated them, the energy grid is still there, and all of our cities is built on a natural energy grid. So if we could just go to these parks and you see these mound sites, all you got to do is recondition and construct your brain in your perspective to being able to see the environment for what it is and how we built these cities along the rivers and where the rivers and these creeks meet and create a confluence, because that's the fertile ground. That's what they call Kemet. That's the Kemet ground, or the alluvial soil, basically, that makes the soil much more fertile, because all the river is pushing all the minerals and nutrients into that one spot. And you can literally kind of just let the food and the fish kind of come to you at those confluences. So those are sacred grounds that will always be sacred. Even if they destroyed it, it's still sacred grounds that we can go to get ourselves grounded and reconnect back with the energy grid, basically. And that will help you open up those doors, because we all once you open up that door, that spiritual door, is really no closing it. Just like once you open up the door to addiction and all of that, it's very hard to close those doors, because you don't have an outlet or a channel to redirect that energy back into, other than drugs. Like, that's all you know. And I had to be taught that I could heal my addictions through the sun by producing these very same hormones naturally. And that is the main message that I want to leave on this segment, is that I had to cure myself naturally by sun gazing. And through sun gazing and sunbathing, that allowed me to produce all the dopamine and then some, to where I was even nodding out, because the sun governs our circadian rhythm. So by the time the time gets to about 9 o'clock at night, that's when I can hear my pineal gland in my own brain. It's secreting a lot of excess melatonin and a lot of dopamine. And by the time 11 o'clock p.m. strikes, I can't even stay up at night if I wanted to, because like, that's when that melatonin starts dripping. And if anybody has an experience with doing like cocaine or anything that you put in your nose, you know the drip sensation that I'm referring to. But
Mm.
that drip is produced naturally by a substance called amrita, and amrita is just a word for nectar. It's the word for nectar of the gods, basically, like the food of the gods. So your brain is producing that excess amounts of concentrated dopamine and DMT and all of that. So you're literally nodding out without ever taking a drug, because you're so in tune with the environment and so in tune with the sun that your body is, your chakras are now activated. So you're in tune with everything around you. So I had to learn
So
it
do you think, I mean, now you see less people being outside, you see more people being inside, after COVID, and then you have like this whole thing about people being on these phones. No one is really outside anymore. If I go outside, I could I could turn my phone on and go outside right now in this moment, and there will be nobody on my street where there used to be children running and playing.
exactly.
No one's outside. So what do you think it is happening to our so then we become what, reliant on vitamin D supplements, artificial sources of vitamin D, because now, why do you think it is that that people don't want that? Or do you think it's like a thing that they don't want us to be outside? Or do you think it's a matter of, I don't
Well,
know,
back
why is
to
there like an epidemic of just not being outside right now?
I'm gonna have to close this out with this point real quick, because
Mhm.
I got take care of something real quick, but and my phone is getting kind of low on battery. But
That's okay, but yeah, it's been two
now
hours.
remember that cities is just another word for site. You have the sites, or the sacred sites, right? That the ancestors built these cities along sacred river, and the rivers are the currents that carry the earthly energies, the earthly energy and nutrition and all of that. So they would create mound sites as a battery, and they built these cities along along these sacred rivers and confluences to help conduct and align the stars with the earth, because you're creating on earth as it was in heaven. You know what I mean? Like they say in the Bible, you're literally mapping out the roads, and all the cities is all in harmony with certain constellations and stars and stuff like that. So because it's a literal reflection of the heavens, they created a concrete jungle to keep us insulated and keep us from naturally healing ourselves and being able to experience the natural healing power of the earth. And they'll build hospitals and stuff like that directly on top of the sacred sites that we would use naturally for healing, so they could channel that energy. But they still not using it properly, but they want to cover it up. You see what I'm saying? But
Hmm.
it'll be on those same sacred sites that we would use naturally to channel that earthly and celestial energy into our bodies, because our body needs those negative ions that we would get from just simply standing on the banks of a river, or on the banks of the beach itself. So they trying to keep us indoors to keep us exposed to harmful radiation that is non-ionizing. You have ionizing radiation, and you have non-ionizing radiation that you get from like machinery or technology and television and stuff like that. Your body can't absorb and assimilate those ions the way it can with the sunlight or with like cosmic radiation. Because we can absorb it, and because we are cosmic beings and our melanin is meant to absorb those ions, they they flip the script and turn our sacred sites into concrete jungles. So they trying to nowadays kids don't go outside anymore. They want us to be indoors playing video games and stuck on with our tablets, and you see the lack of growth and development in these children because they're not getting that attention that they're supposed to get. They're not getting that natural nurturing energy that they're supposed to get, because we've replaced nurture with technology. And you and and nature is an aspect of nurture. Like they try to separate nature versus nurture. They separated it, but they're one and the same. They go hand in hand. That
Man, this
makes
has been
sense.
a very beautiful and powerful show. Man, your breadth of knowledge is amazing. And I appreciate you being so candid about like the things that you went through with your addiction to help other people to be able to talk about this type of stuff. And when you get on a roll, you get on a roll. Like you're able to break things down in a way that I think that's just amazing. So I can't wait to till we come back so that we can like really get into the next subject. When you come back, what do you want to bring? What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the metaphysics of nutrition and vitamins and the importance of vitamins and nutrition and minerals in our body.
I'm gonna I'm gonna have to think about that, because I do want to kind of bridge natural healing methods as far as depression and the spirituality of depression, and how the spirit world will manipulate you through like planting, false emotions, because you feel so deeply, like you feel things so strongly. And because we're naturally, some people are empathic and can pick up other people's vibes and stuff like that, you got to realize how the spirit world works. And you got to learn to distinguish your own personal thoughts from the thoughts that are telepathically sent to you. And that's how the so-called spirit world works. They'll
Yeah.
send you a thought, and it'll trick you and make you think those are your own thoughts. And
Mm,
spiritually, as an empath, I had to learn to distinguish my own intuition and my own thoughts from those self-harming thoughts per se,
yeah.
because that's when if you can't distinguish the difference, when you look up the word shaitan in Islam, Shaitan is where we get the word Satan, and these are the jinn beings, or what we call watchers, that are very, very intelligent and know how to manipulate mankind because they know how we act and operate. So Shaitan, with Shaitan, I think it's spelled, it's a Islamic concept where these beings are what, like ancient watchers. They manipulate you by planting thoughts into your brain, or into, planting thoughts into your perspective to kind of mislead you. And you got to learn to kind of distinguish between those thoughts and your own feelings versus the feelings and thoughts that you get from elsewhere. And you don't really know how to do that until you get yourself grounded, until you more in tune and tap in with yourself. Let me leave my we can open up the door for suggestions as well, as to a part two, as far as like the topics or the points that we could touch on, because today I was kind of freestyling. But I want to leave my email in case you have my email posted already. Can you hear me?
What's your email?
LA is LAHAAN 312 at AOL.com. That's
Yeah,
if anybody. What's that?
you got an AOL. That's crazy. I didn't know I still had
I
AOL.
know. Don't nobody use AOL no more, huh?
Right. I'm like, man, that's old as heck. You still got AOL? America
Yeah, I
Online?
made that email. That was my very first email address, to be honest with you. But I'm still using that same email. But I do got a Gmail, but I'm still using that same email address. But that, if you ever want to contact me with their own personal issues, or if they want to, send a donation to the PayPal or something like that to support the movement. But this is, I want to also open up the door for suggestions. If anybody want me to touch on some topics that they might be going through as well, because part two, I do want to bridge the gap between the nature work and how I also use the sun to heal my own addiction, because I haven't really touched into how I got over my own addictions to, naturally, and use sun gazing and sunbathing in the process that it takes to kind of build up these natural hormones, and so you don't have to be codependent on substances itself.
Right, right. Well, definitely make sure you guys hit him up. This is Mandela Ellis, and he is here. If you have addictions, you have things that you're trying to heal yourself from, please reach out to him. He knows how to help you to get over your addictions, and like using natural like ways, methods. So please reach out to him. I think anybody who's going to be able to see this, I think a lot of people are going to hit the replay. YouTube right now is kind of toggling my views. I don't know why, but I'm grateful to have you here. This was a great show. Thank you so much.
And I appreciate you for taking the time as well, and for giving me this opportunity, because this is something that has been long overdue, and it's a message that I feel like a lot of people need, because I would be lost myself if I haven't found my natural mediumship. You know what I mean?
Right.
And anybody who has been through what I've been through, and anybody who are spiritual as well, like, real from fake when you see it. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly. And so I think that people like us are kind of coming together anyway. So, this is just another avenue, a thing that we have to kind of like clear up before when we come together. We have to be able to get rid of our addiction. We have to like get rid of to actually approach them in a certain way and get rid of those things so we can be of clear mind, because there's a shift happening. I'm not sure if anybody else feels it. There's something happening. I don't know what it is. So, yeah, but we'll find out sooner or later. Sooner enough.
Yeah, we'll touch on that shift that's going on. That's something that we see going on, but we have yet to be able to put our finger on what's going on, because they keep hijacking all of our movements. You notice there's a new movement within the black community every decade. Like whether it's the conscious movement, whether it's the woke movement, whether it's the um every 10 years, like we literally go through a new movement. And this movement is a delineating movement where we have to self-identify ourselves from what we were told we are. That doesn't mean you don't have your heart and loyalties with so-called the motherland of Africa and all of that. But us as a people, we are way more ancient than what they tell us that we are. And we have accomplished way more than what they want us to know. So that's why they want to put you in a box, to try to put you only in a regional, to kind of isolate you in that box, or just kind of use these labels to kind of isolate you as within your own identities. So you won't be able to organize with the people around you, because you're going to subscribe to an ideology that they won't necessarily subscribe to, when you're not really all connected. You see what I'm saying? Even in the people in Africa, all the way in Egypt, and all the way wherever, all over the world, we built these pyramids and this grid system for a reason. And it wasn't for us to separate each other. It was for us to be united with each other, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what I want to leave on for now. And then we can pick up, where we left off. And I'm open to suggestions as well.
Wow. So much love, everybody. This has been a great show. I can't wait till our next show. This has been beautiful. Thank you so much for coming. And I look forward to the next show.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll talk again soon.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah, yeah, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you,